wrong button.
Okay.
One above it.
Last week we learned about the way depressed people think. Anybody experience any of those emotions this week? I bet, right? Yeah. We all deal with those things in some way or another. It just, sometimes, some people just can't deal with it like others. So I put it that way. And you have to admit that first you have to admit that you have a problem before you can do anything about it. And been a pretty good week for me. I think talking about this and talking to you and hearing what you have had to say has helped me. So, any questions about last week? Anything that you thought about this week that you want to talk about?
This little lady, this little old lady coming back. When did I say? She's probably in her late 80s. Still going, still makes her saying, she said her daddy told her, and it's something I tried to, because some days you don't feel like it, but she said, my daddy always told me, you know, like a feeling. So I tried to motivate myself, so no matter how I feel, I'm going to beat it to the floor.
Hit the floor. Yeah. Well, you have to. You have to move on. You can't stay in the same place. You know, it just gets worse and worse if you don't get out and go. There's a couple of articles that I found. Their brother Peter approved, so I did let him read them before I brought them to church. The 5 things that Christians should know about the church. Yeah. Depression isn't what the church sometimes makes it out to be. It's not a character defect, a spiritual disorder, or an emotional dysfunction. And chief of all, it is not a choice. Asking someone to try not being depressed is tantamount to asking someone who's been shot to try and stop bleeding. So, I think that's pretty plain. You can't get any plainer than that. Such an attitude can dangerously appear in the church as if only you had enough faith. We mentioned that a couple of times. How many of us have enough faith?
If we have it for a moment, then something else comes along, trips us right up.
But do you think we ever have enough?
Yeah.
Enough. Well, the Bible says you have enough faith, you tell the mountain to move and it move. So can you tell the mountain to move and it move? So, no. Okay. So it's not a faith thing, and in the past, that's the way it has been treated. That's the way it's been addressed. I told you before. Had a friend, her preacher, her pastor told her that it was a faith thing, that she didn't need medicine. Just throw it out. You don't need it. So what it did to her was actually make her feel worse.
It actually probably double impacted.
Yes.
Because, she was not taking the medication for one, and then she felt more condemned by her pastor.
Yes.
So, she...
Shame.
Yeah, she went in feeling bad, and she came out feeling worse.
She felt shamed because he said that to her. All of this, the reason we're doing all of this is to better be able to understand one another, so we can love on one another. That's what it's all about, is loving each other. And that's where we're trying to get to. And that's what, trying to point out here, some of the things that's gone on in the past in the church about people who are depressed and have anxiety issues or mental disorders. Cue the record, scratch for any Christian regarding matters of healing. Having faith in God's ability to heal is hugely important, and personal faith can help ease depression. But to deny medical or psychiatric treatment to someone suffering from mental illness is really no different than denying them someone with a physical illness. The difference between the two is the former is invisible. I think we did that the first week too. You can see somebody with a, if they have a broken arm, broken leg, and, they have cancer. We don't think, that's a disease. We don't think anything about it. You can't see it, cancer, but you know it's there. It doesn't have the same stigma that mental illness does. But just because you can't see it, doesn't mean it's not real. Can't see the air, it doesn't mean it's not real. So, speaking of invisible, some faith traditions are quick to suggest demonic attack as a cause for depression. While I am convinced that there's definitely a spiritual element, the enemy will exploit any weakness. Medical science holds that major depressive disorder is real and causes are manifold. So the devil, when did he attack Jesus?
Well, you tried when you thought he was the weakest.
There you go. So if you're battling with something in your mind, if you're battling with depression and there's something that's not right there, and we know some people there's chemical imbalance there. We know that. So he's going to attack you. And he's going to bring it to you hard. He's going to throw everything back up in your face that you've ever done, that you've ever thought about. He's going to try to keep you down here. Because if he can keep you down here, then you're not out witnessing to people, loving on people, telling people about Jesus, teaching kids about Jesus, teaching the world that's gone mad about Jesus. Because right now it has gone mad. So, I talked to Brother Peter about this some, and I hope he will speak into it. But at the time it was so bad for me, I had surrendered to go into the ministry, and that's when it hit me the worst. And it took me a while to kind of get my head around it, but I do feel like that I was under spiritual attack during that time. Brother Peter.
Yeah. Well, anytime we're trying to do something for God, Satan's going to be all over you trying to get you distracted. And he's not guessing at what our weak spots are. He knows for sure. And he'll just dig in deep and go for it. And so, as Danny's sharing, when he was gaining the being obedient for what God was pointing him to, Satan was just bringing him lower and lower and lower. And I even had Danny scheduled to preach for me, but Danny was at the point where I can't do it. And so it was a lot of prayer and a lot of conversation where he finally got to the point where I'm not going to give the devil the victory, and he ended up preaching. And I think that was one of the turning points. That's where things started turning around.
Yes, it was for me. It was for me. The two things that I never wanted to go through what I went through, but there's two things that I got out of it that made me a better person. And one is it humbled me. It made me humble. It humbled me.
It humbled you?
Yes. It took away whatever pride I might ever had. And the other one was a greater compassion for people who are struggling. I can see that in people. Used to, I've always been able to, I'm a people person most of the time. I have been most of my life. And I usually can tell when somebody's hurting or something's bothering them. But I never, most of the time I didn't ask because I didn't want them to think I was being nosy. I always figured if they wanted me to know, then they would tell me. But now I ask because I love them. And if I can help them, I want to help them. So, mental illness is not a sin. Yes, sins in the past, like physical abuse, substance abuse, and neglect may contribute to depression, and these sins often continue as a coping mechanism to those suffering from mental illnesses. Yet this doesn't make the sufferer of depression and anxiety a sinner simply for experiencing the crushing effects of their condition. The things, when God, we ask for forgiveness of our sins, God is faithful and just to forgive. As far as the east from the west, right? But do we always let them go? We don't do it. That when you're at your lowest point, and like I said before, he's going to bring up everything that you've done, everything that you thought about. He's going to bring it all back to you. So, experiencing depression is not a sin. The sins contribute to it, yes, it can. But it's not a sin. It's not something that somebody physically sets out to make a choice to do. They don't have a choice. I didn't wake up one day and say, well, I'm going to be depressed today. I won't feel bad. I won't feel sad. I won't feel numb. I didn't wake up one day and do that. Nobody does. Nobody wants to wake up that way. But we do. And it's not because of sin. There's something going on here. And we gotta learn how to deal with it. Through medicine, talk therapy. Talking helps me a lot. And it will help a lot of people. So, the Bible doesn't provide easy answers. The Word is full of wisdom and encouragement for those suffering from depression and anxiety disorders, but it doesn't come in one verse doses. Be anxious for nothing, and do not worry about your life. It can easily be taken out of context, which is problematic. First, and importantly, doing so fails to inappropriately handle Scripture carelessly, misconstruing the larger intent of the passages. Another really scary thing this does is it can convince a person in the worst throes of their illness that they're not obeying God, and what they feel, and that to what feels like the inability just to be. Every shaky breath hurts, and getting out of bed is impossible, and you're throwing gasoline on the fire. Been there, done that. You too? Been there. It's not a great place to be. A true examination of depression and anxiety in the Bible shows existential dread that accompanies the illness instead of an easy out, one and done antidote. God's hand isn't always apparent. As Dan Blazer pointed out in the Christianity Today, most of us have no idea what David meant when he further laminated, I am forgotten by them as though I were dead. Severe depression is often beyond description. I shared with you the first week when I was in the middle of it. I couldn't see God. I didn't feel God. I didn't know God was there. That's when I was in the middle of it. But now looking back, I can look and see God never left me. He was there the whole time. He had me all the way through. He worked everything out for me. He got me where I needed to go. He saw he saw my needs. He saw my family's needs. And he'll do that for you too. Rather than prescribing a bit of a verse, divorced from its context, a better strategy is to look at those instances of mental illness suffering along with the church body and to offer comfort in the fact that even the saints struggled. So even the saints struggled. Can you think of anybody that struggled? David was one.
Job,
Blameless and upright. Job was blameless and upright. Struggled. Jeremiah.
Joseph,
Joseph. Anybody else?
Judas at the end there, he had a struggle.
he went the wrong way though, didn't he? So this is not something that's new. It's not something that just popped up within the last 30 years and science just found out about it. It's something that's been going on since I'm sure even before the Bible, but the Bible doesn't directly talk about it.
Even Jesus struggled on the
Yes,
cross.
he sweat blood. So I mean, somebody's sweating blood, what does that mean? They're struggling. You know, that was the man side of it. That was the man side of it. And in the first week I also said that it was hard for me to get my head around. He was 100% man, but he was 100% God. So the man side of him felt what we feel. He's already been there, already done that. So he knows what we're in. He knows where we're at, and he's there with us. Anxiety and depression don't look how we often think. When I open up to Christians, friends, about my own depression and anxiety disorders, they're often surprised. You seem so happy all the time. Depressed people become really good at hiding their symptoms, even from doctors, because of the stigma attached to the illness. Just a show of hands, how many of y'all have sat in church that talked about what we're talking about right now? Why? Yeah, but why don't churches talk about it?
The same reason they don't talk about their sin. We forget sometimes how far we've come. We forget where we've been, or we'd rather, I'm gonna be a Sunday school teacher, so if they really know where I was saved from, they let me teach them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times you just don't want people to know.
Yes, ma'am.
You're either ashamed, you feel guilty
Yeah.
because you think you're supposed to be happy all the time.
You're supposed to have joy. Christians are
Well,
supposed to have
you
joy.
can, you can have joy and still be sad.
Yeah. That is possible. Yes, it is possible. But,
But we've talked more about it since you've come out with it.
yes,
And that's that's what makes people talk about it.
somebody's got to start the conversation.
Somebody's got to start.
Yeah, somebody's got to start the conversation. But in the past, the church has not started the conversation. They have failed to start the conversation. Leaving, I don't know, millions of people.
You know, it's really sad. When you're in that really bad place, when you do feel really, really alone, and sometimes you get so bad that you feel like giving up. And there's so many people out there that need love.
Yes. Yeah. If you can't come to church, and if nothing else, just have somebody wrap their arms around you and tell you they love you, no matter what. Even if you don't understand, even if you don't know what to do, you can still say, I love you, I'm here. If I can help you, I will.
I think for some reason we have a hard time being vulnerable with each other. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to show, I don't know, but we
Yeah.
don't want to show that vulnerability.
Okay.
It's pride.
Yeah.
What are they gonna
It's
think?
pride.
What is a family? I mean, you're intimate with your family, right?
But even some people.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
Sometimes you hide stuff from your family.
Most of the time you are. Well, what is church?
Well, church is family.
Family.
Well, I think we've lost gradually over time the transparency of the church, because when I grew up, I went to a church that had a lot of testimonies given. There were people who get up and tell what mess they were in, but how God brought them out.
Yeah.
So they admitted their sins and they turned back to God, and this is what God did for them.
But they
Yeah,
talked,
in
but they
time.
talked, but they talked about it after they'd already gone through it. They didn't really talk about it when they were going through.
Correct.
In the midst of it.
Yeah.
If you're a depressed person, it may be years before you can
Talk about
it. You know what I mean? Especially if you're not being treated for it.
This is not something I just started dealing with last year. It's been for the most part, my whole life. Bill.
There's some people in my own family I wouldn't tell them how to hang them. So, I mean, there's some people you don't wanna say it to, even if you're in a church, because some people aren't equipped to handle that. So, you know, that's part of the reason why I think a lot, I wouldn't say some things to some people, not to say, I love it, everybody's great to hear. But on Sunday, not everybody, I don't know everybody. I don't know what they're coming from, what their bent is, do they gossip, do they not, you know, I don't know. So,
Well,
that's part of it.
Deborah said we're a family. So we have to be a family. If you confide in someone from the church and they run and tell everybody else, well, then you don't have to tell everybody else. Everybody already knows. Okay? Part of the healing for someone who is depressed is being able to talk about it and have someone willing to listen.
Yeah, you don't have to have the answers.
No, you don't have to have that.
But you wouldn't even share to 100% of the people in here what the issue was when you were going through it.
No, but I am now.
Well, you are now, but.
Because I don't want somebody else to go through that.
Right, I understand.
See, that's the whole point. That's the whole reason we're doing this.
And I think the ones who come here and listen to this are the ones you can trust.
Yeah.
But it's, again, in the general population, the reason why people don't speak out is because who do you speak out to that you can confide in and not get looked at?
Well, my answer to you is this, Bill. It's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, but you gotta know who to start with.
Got to start somewhere.
I have 4 sisters, and I understand what you're saying. And these are all good people, we are all good people. And the Lord, you'll know, because love is freely given, but trust is given. So you pray that God will show you the person that you can speak to and let you know. And a lot of times you don't know you're depressed. I was depressed for years, absolutely years. High blood pressure, it's where I had a stroke. Finally, when my blood pressure got to what, 264 over 168 or something in the hospital, I realized I was depressed. That I had been depressed for years. So you're not, sometimes you just don't know, and you'll see me going. That's just part of the side part of the major thing, but what got me personally through depression is when I went to fetal position. I decided to go that road. And that's when I broke down. And I finally realized it was me. I was so hurt, so mad. I had blamed everybody.
Yes,
It's me.
but there's
And that's
also,
what I hate.
but there's also people, there's people who are depressed who probably have made themselves that way by choices that they've made. But there's also people who are depressed
Well, when
that they have no choice.
Right, but when you got called, I knew my son had preached, he had got called, and the deeper the love, the deeper the pain. Because of the position you're in, God has allowed you to take on a lot of heavy sadness. You've learned a lot about people, and you can't speak it, you can't talk about it, it has to stay in there. That's how I've prayed for you since you've had the call of God,
Yeah,
that you wouldn't have to, my son had broken.
yeah,
A lot of men of God do, because who you don't talk to,
right.
other than God.
Well, I can tell you from past experience, there is no better man to talk to than that one sitting right over there.
He's just a teddy bear.
Yes, sir.
I was just gonna comment on, it's hard to, because you find somebody you think you can trust and you confide in them, and then they violate that trust. So
Yeah.
then it's harder to find the next person.
Yes.
The next person, and you get your trust violated so many times, you just shut down and say, I'm done, you know?
Yeah, that's human nature to want to quit. But I would encourage you to keep trying. Because they're-
I'm here, I'm keeping trying, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, I had a friend of mine from back where I'm from, right before Christmas, you know, didn't think anything was wrong, and all of a sudden shot himself in the head because he was so depressed, you know, it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
I mean, even
yeah.
science getting there, they're not there.
When you,
Society looks down on people like that, finds them.
yes, they do. And if the church can't deal with people who have problems, I mean, we all have problems in one way or another, whether it be depression, anger, you know. We all have something that's not right. But if the church can't deal with those kind of things, how is the outside world, somebody who doesn't know Christ, somebody who doesn't have a church family, how are they going to deal with it? Who's going to show them? That's why I say we got the stigma of mental illness in the church has to leave. It's got to be gone. You got to do away with it. And I hope whatever we have to do here in this church to get rid of it, we will. And I think we are. I think we are. Because we've been willing to come in. This is not an easy subject to talk about. It's not something easy that people won't admit to. It's not easy. But God's going to see us through it. I mean, he says he's not going to put anything on us that we can't handle. We know that. We know that. But it's hard to see that a lot of times. And we have to love each other. We have to. No way around it. You got to accept us, warts and all. You got to accept us. That's just a plain simple fact. You may not like some of the things I do, but I hope you love me. I may not like some of the things you do, but I'm going to love you. And if I can help you, I will. I hope everybody in here knows that.
I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine the other day, and we've gone through some tough times. We talked about these conversations in cars, but we're in 8 hours driving somewhere. And he said something to me the other night. You know, we don't say it enough. He said, John, we're more than friends. We're Christian brothers in Christ. And I thought about that ever since he said that, and neither one of us is perfect,
Right,
but we're brothers in Christ.
yeah.
And that's more important than our friendship.
You know, and what do men have trouble telling each other?
I love you.
I love you, Dan. I do. I love you, Jim.
So that means we're selfish.
If you don't have it, you're good. Amen. You're in good shape. You're in good shape. But that men over time have struggled. And you know, I don't remember older men saying that they loved another man, or you know, they just didn't talk about that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. I cry like a
I
baby.
see my dad crying until
Yeah.
his mama passed away.
Yeah. If something gets pretty heavy on me tonight, I'll cry.
I know, but what I was saying is like, I never saw my dad cry until his mom passed away.
I never saw my father cry
Because that was just the thing that men don't cry.
Yeah.
Well,
until my grandfather passed away.
women like to see men cry because it makes them, I don't know, you feel like they're a real person then, you know?
I'll stick around. I'll look real. I'll be real. I'll be real before it's over.
When I had my first boy, I read a book that was called Real Boys Don't Cry, and it's just side kind of teaches men, you know, all toughen up, you know, all quit
Yeah.
crying about that. One of my old man's favorite phrases was, "Do you want something to cry about?"
Yeah.
You know.
I'll give you something to cry about.
Science just teaches women not to cry.
I've heard that.
In a movie, you know.
Yeah, I've heard that more than once. If you won't cry, I'll give you something to cry about.
Exactly.
But yes, men were not supposed to cry. I mean, that's the way I was raised. I'm sure most of y'all are my age or close to it. That's just the way men were raised. You don't cry. And if you did, you sure didn't let nobody see you crying. You know? I can remember when I was in the service and I finally got to call home. We finally got to call home. Been there 2 weeks. Finally got to call home. Still when they had a payphone. We didn't have cell phones back then. There's 4 payphones that the guys would go in, they'd come out crying. I mean, one right after the other. And I'm thinking, man, I ain't gonna cry. I ain't gonna do it. So I finally get in there, and of course, when I first word out of my mom's mouth and I heard her voice, I went, crying is not a bad thing.
Actually relieves stress.
Yeah, God give us, that's something from God. You know, God gave us crying to be able to let things out, to help us cope. So if God give it to us, how can it be bad?
So Billy sometimes asks me why I cry, and I go, I think it's a stress. And it's true, it is.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, almost the candy, I was going, whoa.
I was thinking this week about grief and depression
Yes, ma'am.
and how in our society today, we're not really allowed to grieve the way we really need to. We have so many losses that we need to grieve, but we just hold them inside and don't. And by doing that, it eventually, I think, can lead to depression because we haven't been able to express that grief.
I don't know if you were here the first week, but one of the things that kind of started everything for me was when my sister passed away, just out of the blue, 48 years old. You know, got a call in the morning, and my mom, Michelle, actually answered the phone. She passed away in her sleep. It was really hard for me because I knew my mom and dad were She had 2 sons, my nephews, I knew they were hurt. And my mom, bless her heart, I don't think she realized how it affected me because she asked me to speak at my sister's funeral. And I did. But I didn't get the grief. I couldn't fall apart in front of my mom, my dad, my nephews. You gotta be strong, man, strong. We all deal with death in different ways. Some of us hold on to it. Some of us try to get it off of our mind. And some of us just push it away for a later date. That's what I did. And it hurt me. It still hurts me today. So when you lose someone, deal with it. Do what you have to do. And okay, you lost your brother. So, you know, the more you push things away and the less you try to deal with it, the worse it builds up and the worse it makes it. But in grief, there is somebody that's always there. You can always turn to. That's God.
So I was gonna say, it's bad, a bad of lows that I've been in. I give God all the glory because he's been right there. And there's sometimes I can't even do anything but just say, and I do. I have. Jesus. He's always there. And like you were saying a while ago, you've got people that don't know him. How in the world do they? How in the world? And Brother Peter, I don't know if you remember me, maybe not long after we started coming down here to church, and I felt so happy to be in a church that I felt so much love. But there was still that little cloud that just hangs over, and I had come down the aisle and told you that I wanted to give my depression to God. I don't know if you remember that. I still have it. I may always still have it, but he's got it.
Amen. Amen.
You're talking about dealing with like the death,
Mhm.
but I mean, that could be applied to any circumstance you're going through.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
hardship that's really
Oh.
affecting you to give it to the Lord, but also to grieve it or, try to deal with it, whatever you can. So you don't pack it inside and go on and make it out later on.
You know, here's the other thing that we do. If somebody dies and we know that they're a Christian, that should be a joyous time. They graduate. They went on. They don't have to deal with all this mess anymore. But that's something else that's hard to see when you're in grief, when you grieve someone. Grief is the same.
The Bible says we don't grieve as those who have no hope.
Ma'am.
The Bible says we don't grieve as those who have no hope.
Yes, ma'am.
That's
Yes, ma'am.
a different kind of grief than
Mhm.
a loss that you don't
Yeah.
know.
We've all had those too. We've all had those too. I had a first cousin of mine. I talked to him about Jesus and talked to him about the Bible, witnessed to him, but he never accepted God. And
You don't know that.
I don't know that. You're right, because I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna finish the story.
Sorry.
Watch your.
I when he passed away, it bothered me. I mean, it really did it bothered me. But he passed away, he knew he was sick. He went into his niece's room and told her, said, you gotta carry me to the hospital. And right before he passed away, he started talking about God and asking questions. But I still didn't know, you know, and I prayed about it, And the answer I got was, he knew he was in bad shape. And what happened between the time he was at his home and the time he got to the hospital, he had time to accept God. And that gave me peace. It gave me peace. So, grief is a big one.
Well, I heard, some Christian lady that, I can't remember who it was now, but she had said that when, Jesus was in the garden, and he was reading where he was perspiring blood, that at that point, when he was just so bad off, that's when he even experienced committing suicide, but he did not. That was the point where because he's experienced everything that we had as far as to that point.
I don't know that I don't think he was.
He said, Lord, take this cup.
He said, take this cup from me. And he was struggling. Yes, he was physically struggling. I don't think he thought about committing suicide. I don't think that.
He says they experienced everything that we've ever experienced, and people have experienced the thought of wanting to kill themselves. So I would say that he did experience it at that point.
You know, the Bible doesn't say that. It just says, you know, take this cup from me.
And God was holy, Jesus was holy.
Yeah.
So, and he was with no sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't sin.
Jesus was asking, he asked 40 times for the cup of the wrath of God to be taken away.
Right.
Read in the Bible what that cup of the wrath of God is, and you understand why he did not want to go through that. But he willingly did what his son told him.
Yes. You know, I said he experienced the things we did. Yes, he experienced the things we did, but he did it all without sin.
Right.
He's the only one who ever done that. So, no, he didn't want to be alone. You know, he kept going back to the disciples and saying, wake up, pray with me. What'd they do? They went back to sleep.
So he knows what it's like to be alone.
Yeah, he knows what it's like to be alone.
Would that not be an evil thought,
What?
him thinking about killing himself?
No, I don't think he did, Dan.
No,
I mean,
I'm just saying, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because he's, you know, without
he-
sin.
Well, you know, the devil, when he was tempting him, told him that if you're truly the Son of God, throw yourself off this,
Right.
you know.
And we have to remember too, he came knowing what he was gonna be doing here.
Okay.
He knew he wasn't gonna be able to prevent it, he was here to do the Father's will.
God knows Jesus knows where we are. He knows where we're at. He knows where each and every one of us is at in our lives, in our personal lives, in our walk with Him. He knows all of that. He knows what you're feeling. He knows if you're hurting. He knows all of that. You know, grief, and I feel for you. I really do, because grief is a hard one. And, you know, what's the old cliche? Time heals, only time. Time does help, but it doesn't take it away. You know, it's still there. Because you love somebody. You love them. This week, I heard I talked to Brother Peter about this too. It was a pastor on TV, which I usually don't watch him. I usually don't listen to him. But he was talking about 1 Peter 5, I think it's verse 6, where you're supposed to give everything to God. And he said that people who didn't give everything to God, it was a pride thing. In one way I can see it, if you think you don't need God and you don't give it to God, then yes, that could be a pride thing. But if you know you need God and you give it all to God, that's not pride. It's not pride. So they paint everything with a broad stroke. You know? So you have to be careful with what you watch on TV and who you listen to. Strong churches don't fix depression. Given all the above, it's easy to understand how stigma related to depression, even in the church, will prevent people from seeking Christian guidance and support. The most Christ-loving and helpful community might not have the appropriate framework for dealing with such clinical disorders. And many churches don't have licensed psychologists on staff. Pastoral staff can be ill-equipped to deal with depression and err toward a spiritual solution rather than psychological or medical treatment. Even churches that seek to provide a safe haven for those suffering in the midst might not have a judgment-free place to discuss their struggles. We've talked about that a lot, judgment. Talked about it a lot. Programs like Celebrate Recovery can provide an invaluable forum for people who interact with others who experience hurts, habits, and hang-ups, and can help deal with some of the self-medication many people with depression and anxiety use to numb themselves. So, what would be some things that people use to numb themselves?
Alcohol, drugs.
Gambling. My sister, that was her choice. Yeah.
Whatever bothers you.
Yeah.
I've been to that, when I went through divorce care, the church I was going to had that Celebrate Recovery, and I went a couple of times. And it was pretty neat. I mean, they had it set up where you had praise and stuff prior, worship and praise, and then they break up into little groups, and you just felt at liberty to say whatever was on your mind, as to what was bothering you. And, but people did not correct you and say, it was judgment free. They weren't really allowed to give you advice how to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just kind of let it out.
Yeah, get it out.
To get it off your
Yeah.
chest.
That off Hatcher Lane?
Huh?
That church off Hatcher Lane?
Yeah, that's the Methodist church, I think, has it up the Hatcher. So,
Without a carefully planned strategy to deal with mental illness, though, all are welcome might not be enough. Healing comes from prayerful, loving community that seeks to truly understand major depressive disorder and related conditions, and the one that develops a positive response. Most churches probably have the best intentions when dealing with issues of mental illness. Like the rest of society, however, the church misinterprets these clinical conditions and responds to them in ways that say that for me, exacerbate them, and as a result, demoralizing those suffering. Christ, the great physician, came to heal the sick. As his body, it is time the church leads society in helping to do the same.
That's major. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So, is that something we want to do? Something we want to understand? Something we want to seek? Do we want to be the kind of church that helps lead people out of it? Be there for them. Love them.
Well, at a minimum, not have a knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
At a minimum. Say, oh,
Yeah.
then,
The judgment thing. You know, I mean, we've mentioned it several times. The judgment thing, you know, being judged. It's a big hang-up. And that's the reason why a lot of people don't say anything. So, we gotta keep that in mind. You can't judge people, but we do have to meet them where they are, wherever they're at. We have to do that. And we gotta meet them with love. Love. Depressed people, you need to marinate them in love. And the church should be able to do that. Right?
Right.
Love. God is love.
I think we have to, it doesn't happen overnight, it happens one person at a time.
Right. Exactly right.
See that person who is the strong person for the family grouping, be that outlet for them to open up to and build that trust that somebody mentioned. You have to build trust for people to be willing to open up, and the more we do it, the more things start to change.
Yeah.
We have to start somewhere.
Yeah, we have to start somewhere.
You know, and here's the thing too. If somebody comes to me and I tell somebody else about what you're going through,
Mhm.
that person that I told, they should be going up to you and talking to you too, and showing the love.
Mhm.
Instead of like, we were talking about it. If you, a church family, and you love me, that's what you should do anyway. And the more people that knows your situation, the more it's gonna better make you feel better, or whoever is going through that.
I won't tell this, then there was a lady who went to church here. Wonderful, God-fearing, just